The 2025 Tribeca Film Festival is here, and while it might not garner quite as much attention as some of the European festivals occurring around this same time, like Cannes, obviously, or Venice, there are still a ton of great projects that are worth a watch. As Tribeca has a mix of films, movies that have played on the festival circuit already, and also some world premieres, this list starts with 5 that have already played and that I have seen at different festivals, so I know that they're worth a watch, and then the final 5 are world premieres that have the most potential to turn into something special. So on that note, let's get rolling. Number 10 is Bunny. Bunny was one of the last films that I saw as part of South by Southwest this year. Actually watching it on a screener after coming back from Austin, but I'm so glad that I gave it the time that I did. It was one of the biggest surprises of the festival for me, knowing very little about director Ben Jacobson or the rest of the team, but it ended up being probably the funniest, or at least one of the funniest and most grounded films of the festival, surprisingly. It follows Bunny, who lives in an East Village tenement building, and we're introduced to a ton of interesting characters. We have rabbis, we have police officers, we have some frat boys, we have pretty much everything that you could ask for in this mostly single location comedy. It's super, super funny. Number 9 is Inside. Inside is directed by Charles Williams, who is definitely not a household name, although he did win the short film Palme d'Or at Cannes a few years ago. But Inside is really where he's poised to break out. The film follows Mel Blight, played by Vincent Miller, who is a teen transferred from juvenile detention to an adult prison. And once he's inside, he's caught between 2 very different mentors with very different approaches to life, both inside and outside. Interestingly, Williams spent years interviewing officers and visiting prisons in Australia to try to ensure that the film could reflect reality as much as possible. Number 8 is Relay. Relay is directed by David Mackenzie, who you would probably know from his most acclaimed film, Hell or High Water, which earned multiple Oscar nominations, and he's bringing that same kind of sharp style to this thriller. In Relay, we have Ash, who is kind of this reclusive fixer played by the wonderful Riz Ahmed. I will say I like to claim my biases when they're present. I'm a big fan of Riz Ahmed, both his acting, just look at Sound of Metal, but also his other work behind the camera, like the Oscar-nominated short film, The Long Goodbye. But as it relates to Relay, Riz Ahmed's character helps keep corporate whistleblowers safe, but when he and Lily James come up against this major biotech cover-up, they are placed right into the action opposite corporate mercenaries played by, most notably, Sam Worthington. We have the same DP from Hell or High Water here as well, which makes sense when you see how well shot it is. Number 7 is East of Wall. East of Wall is directed by newcomer Katy Beecroft, and this film definitely wasn't on most people's radars heading into Sundance, but it's exactly the kind of hidden indie gem that those festivals are made for. It follows Tabatha, who is a horse trainer in the Badlands, as she struggles to keep her ranch afloat after her husband's death, while also trying to raise her daughter. Beecroft really beautifully captures the rawness of the Badlands, with cinematographer Austin Shelton bringing out the landscape. Beyond the visuals, it's a very grounded, character-driven story about resilience and family bonds. And I should mention that the mother and daughter duo portrayed in this film are real-life mother and daughter. So there's another layer to appreciate there. Number 6 is Twinless. Okay, so we're still discussing festival favorites, but sadly I was not able to watch Twinless at Sundance because people are terrible. I had scheduled to watch this one online, but folks started leaking scenes from the film, particularly sex scenes, and as a result, they pulled the film from online viewing and have been pretty tight with screening opportunities. So I'm just going off of my conversations with others and the general kind of consensus around Twinless, which is quite positive. It's the second feature film from James Sweeney, who co-stars in the project alongside Dylan O'Brien, and it is basically a heartfelt dramedy about these two men who form a bond after meeting at a twin bereavement support group. Sweeney continues his collaboration with Greg Cotton, the cinematographer from his debut film Straight Up. Despite Twinless being a much bigger project, relatively speaking, I think Straight Up was shot on $10,000 or $20,000 budget, but he kept with some of his core team, and it's clearly paid off with Twinless winning the Audience Award at Sundance. Number 5 is The Trainer. So I'm cheating a little bit. Again, I said that the top 5 would be world premieres, and The Trainer has technically already played at Rome back in 2024, actually. But there's not yet a strong critical consensus, and Tribeca seems to be the festival where it's going to be garnering the most attention. I promise that the top 4 are all world premieres. But The Trainer is directed by Tony Kaye, who was the director behind American History X, and it follows Jack Flex, who is this quote-unquote creative genius trying to sell a fitness gadget on his mom's favorite home shopping channel. It looks to be a satirical, pretty chaotic ride through LA with an interesting cast, including folks like Julia Fox, Lenny Kravitz, and Steven Van Zandt. Kaye's career has been a bit of a mystery, and he's sort of an enigma himself. He has had more projects, it seems, that have been announced and scrapped versus projects that have actually come to fruition. And it's pretty wild when we hear some of these stories that happen behind the scenes. But all of that being said, The Trainer is still shaping up to be chaotic, and it could swing either way. Number 4 is She Dances. She Dances comes from director Rick Gomez, who is known for his career as an actor, but he is stepping behind the camera here for his first feature. The film follows Jason, played by Steve Zahn, and his best friend Brian, played by one of my personal favorite actors, Ethan Hawke, as they try to sell a small distillery that they run together. Brian is doing this while simultaneously trying to cope with the loss of his son, the separation from his wife, and being away from his teen daughter, Claire, who is played by his real-life daughter, Audrey. Claire and her best friend Kat, played by Mackenzie Ziegler of Dance Moms fame, are invited to compete in a regional dance competition, and Jason finds himself thrown headfirst into this wild world of Dance Moms. The experience also serves as an opportunity for him to become closer to his daughter and form an imperfect but meaningful relationship with her. And while I'm not expecting anything particularly profound, it should be funny and heartfelt and rooted in this obviously authentic father-daughter relationship, while also looking at things like friendship and loss. Number 3 is Sovereign. Sovereign is directed and written by Christian Swegel in his feature film debut. Apologies for the pronunciation. The story centers on Jerry Kane, who is played by Nick Offerman, as an out-of-work roofer, kind of fallen into this sovereign citizen anti-government movement, and is determined to pass those beliefs on to his homeschooled son, Joe, played by Jacob Tremblay. They hit the road trying to convince other folks of these beliefs, and Jerry's ideology starts to get a little bit more extreme while he loses his grip on reality. They then come face to face with a small town police officer played by the wonderful Dennis Quaid, as a bunch of themes come together: the search for purpose, bonding between father and son, the line between fact and fiction, and it looks to be a pretty interesting and potentially powerful project. Number 2 is Sham. Sham is directed by the very prolific Miike Takashi and is a true crime thriller based on a 2007 book. It tells the story of a young teacher who is essentially accused of inciting harmful behavior amongst his students, and we see the consequences that spiral from this as we explore ideas of class and groupthink and systems of behavior and education and how these systems interact with one another. Takashi's career spans over 100 films in, I think, just over 3 decades. So we're talking multiple films a year. And while certainly not every single one of his projects hits, I mean, I haven't seen most of them, but I do know when he is on, his work is some of the best in genre filmmaking. And while Sham looks like it probably won't be quite as violent as some of his other works, it is sure to come with a feeling of intensity and some social commentary as well. Number 1 is Queens of the Dead. Queens of the Dead is directed by Tina Romero and takes place during a Brooklyn warehouse party that's thrown into chaos by zombies. We have a group of drag queens and other partygoers who have to come together to essentially survive the night. And while the name Tina Romero might not ring a bell, she is actually the daughter of the legendary George A. Romero, who created the iconic Living Dead series and has been called the father of the modern zombie movie by many. And while it's easy to cry nepotism here, I think we should really give her a shot. She's grown up in this world, in this space, and very likely has an interesting modern perspective on a genre that has been so intrinsically tied to her family. The film stars Katy O'Brien as well, interestingly, who was in one of the fan favorites of Sundance 2024, Love Lies Bleeding, and she has another opportunity here to kind of cement herself as a core actress in this new modern genre filmmaking, so definitely worth a watch, and I'm interested to see how it turns out. Thanks so much. Subscribe, like, comment, share, do all of those things that are helpful to me as a human. Really, really appreciate it. Watch the next one. Thank you so much. Cheers.